Hey guys, welcome to my series Atheism and Agnosticism. This is episode 2, Statements, Propositions, and Psychological States of Belief. So, today we're going to talk about statements, propositions, and psychological states of belief. And we're going to show you how each one of these is related to each other. For instance, you can't have a proposition without a statement, and you can't have a psychological state of belief without a proposition and a statement. So, what are statements? Well, statements are a definite or clear expression of something in speech or writing. And as a synonym, we're looking at an assertion. So here are some examples. The car is black is a statement. The barn is red is a statement. And God exists is a statement. But they are also assertions. So we're going to put that here at the top of this slide to show that these are three different statements that we're going to be talking about. So what are propositions? Well, propositions are statements or assertions that express a judgment or opinion. So here are our statements again. The car is black, the barn is red, or God exists. So a proposition would be the truth value of that. So the car is black, if we assert that that's true, that would be our proposition. It's true that the car is black. It's true that the barn is red. It's true that God exists. We can also have a proposition that they're false. It's false that the car is black. It's false the barn is red. Or it's false that God exists. We can also say, I don't know. We don't know if the car is black. We don't know if the barn is red. And we don't know if God exists. These are three propositions based on these statements. But let's specifically look at the statement God exists. So with God exists, we can still have true, false, or I don't know. But we have separate words that identify each one of these propositions. For instance, when we say that proposition is true that God exists, we're calling that theism, the belief that gods exist. Atheism is when the person is asserting that the statement God exists is false, and that's the belief that no gods exist. And when a person states that they don't know that gods exist, that's the proposition of agnosticism. So now let's look at psychological states of belief. Well, first we have statements, and the statement we're going to be focusing in on is God exists. We have three propositions based on that statement. It's true, it's false, or we don't know. But a psychological state of belief is a belief or lack of belief about a proposition's truth value. I believe or I don't believe. So here we have our three propositions. God exists is true, God exists is false, and God exists I don't know. But we're not looking at all three of these propositions. We're only going to look at one of these propositions. God exists is true. So we'll take this propositional attitude, and then what would be our psychological state of belief on this proposition? That God's existence is true. Well, we can say we believe it's true, or we can also say we do not believe it's true. And that, as a psychological state of belief, is what the literature refers to as theism and atheism. Theism being you believe, and atheism being you do not believe. Sometimes you'll hear someone saying, well, for a psychological state of belief, I believe, I don't believe, and then they'll say, I don't know. But I don't know is not available to you as a psychological state of belief. It's a true dichotomy. Here's an example. If the question is, do you believe the barn is red? You can say, I believe, or I do not believe. But what if you say, I don't know? Well, if you say, I don't know, you haven't answered the question. Because see, if you say, I don't know, you could be mean. You could actually say, I believe the barn is red, but I don't know. And you could also say, I don't know, but I don't believe the barn is red, and I don't know. So as you can see, this is not, your response that I don't know is not answering the question about what you believe. And that's why it's not available as a psychological state of belief. It's either you believe or you don't believe. The next thing that we must talk about are questions. There are two types of questions. There are closed questions and open questions. A closed question is a closed-ended question which can be answered by a simple yes, no, or I don't know. And an open-ended question is just the reverse of that. It can't be answered with a simple yes, no, or I don't know. So let's look specifically at closed questions. Is the car black? Is the barn red? Does God exist? Well, you can answer any one of these questions with a yes, a no, or I don't know. But these are all asking about your propositional attitude to these particular statements. Remember, we have the statement God exists, and we have our three propositions: true, false, or I don't know. But now let's look at it as a psychological state of belief. So the questions will have to change. Instead of asking, is the car black? We're asking, do you believe the car is black? Do you believe the barn is red? Do you believe God exists? Now here you can answer yes or no. And that would be your psychological state of belief on those questions. And remember, I don't know is not available. So here again, you see how for your statements you get propositions, and from propositions you get psychological states of belief. So now let's focus in on, does God exist? And do you believe God exists? Particularly. So first let's start with, does God exist? Well, the answer to that question can be in one of three propositional states. It's true, it's false, or I don't know. Now generally when you ask this question, if someone says it's true, they're a theist. They believe gods exist. If they say it's false, they're an atheist. They believe no gods exist. And if they say I don't know, they're spouting agnosticism, the belief that gods are unknowable. They're accepting a propositional attitude to the claim, to the question, does God exist? But now let's focus in on the question as a psychological state of belief. Do you believe gods exist? So here, with do you believe gods exist, the propositional attitude is already in the question. It's asking you, do you believe gods exist? It's true. You can either say I believe or I don't believe. And that would be your psychological state of belief on the proposition, do you believe gods exist? So now, look at this. You can also ask for a psychological state of belief and the negation. Here you have, do you believe the car is not black? Do you believe the barn is not red? Do you believe God does not exist? Here, it has a propositional attitude of false. We're asking you, do you believe these propositions to be false? And here, your psychological state of belief can also still be I believe or I do not believe. So here's a quick recap. We have statements, propositions, and psychological states of belief. They all work together. You can't have a proposition without a statement, and you can't have a psychological state of belief without a proposition. We define what statements are: clear expressions of something in speech or writing, synonymous with assertions. We define what propositions are. They are statements or assertions that express a judgment or opinion. And we define what psychological states of belief are. They are a belief or lack of belief on a proposition's truth value. I believe or I do not believe. We understand that the initial statement, does God exist? Understanding the propositions that we can derive from it. God exists is true, God exists is false, or I don't know. And then we understood how psychological states of belief are asking you whether you believe one of the above propositions are true. Either you believe it or you don't. There is no middle ground for your psychological state of belief. We talked about open and closed questions. We defined what a closed question was, a question that can be answered with a simple yes, no, or I don't know. We talked about open questions that can't be answered with either yes or no. So also we learned the question matters. So if someone says, is the car black, is the barn red, or does God exist? They're asking us about how we feel about the proposition. We can answer this yes, no, or I don't know. Versus if someone changes the question with, do you believe the car is black? Do you believe the barn is red? Or do you believe God exists? They're asking us our belief, and we can only say whether we believe or don't believe. You can't say, I don't know what I believe. That doesn't make any sense. So episode 3 is going to be, what is the best way to understand the terms atheism and agnosticism? Now we understand the difference between statements, propositions, and psychological states of belief. We understand how they work together. And now we're going to see what the best way is to define and understand these terms. So I want to leave you with this. Atheism and agnosticism can be understood as propositions and as psychological states of belief. Now you may hear somebody say that one is philosophical, one is colloquial, but I'm telling you that that person doesn't know what they're talking about. because they're understood in these particular different contexts. And understanding when someone's asking you a propositional attitude versus what your psychological state of belief is helps determine how these words should be used in that particular context. So next week's video is going to be a little bit more controversial because we're going to be showing how a lot of these YouTube philosophers don't understand this, and they're making the same mistakes. And we're going to be going directly to videos and pulling out their direct quotes and their interactions to show you how they've been misusing these words as both psychological states of belief and as propositions. So I hope to see you next week, and thanks for watching again.